Guru by Fiona Salter. Have you seen this? Canon Stephen is waving the Western Morning News. Harry Mount is planning a solstice vigil on Belston Tor.
Remind me,
Drawls the Archdeacon.
is this the one off Bake Off? Or the one who was in the Communards?
Neither. This is the one joining with the Druids for an EarthSong vigil.
The rise of the celebrity priest. I blame myself.
Preens the Archdeacon.
I suppose he'll say it's ecumenical.
Well, if it was with the Methodists, yes. With Druids, not so much.
Well, let's not be hasty. It's very countercultural. It's very now. It really is. The frontier of evangelism. I'm very excited. This could put us on the map.
The Archdeacon strokes his beard reflectively.
And may I remind you, he pulls in the biggest congregation in the diocese.
I didn't know it was all about bums on pews, or in this case, hillsides. Besides, I don't think he would be wise to meddle with nature worship, Stephen adds quietly.
We must move with the times, snapped the Archdeacon briskly. Check out this EarthSong. Would you, Stephen?
The 14th century bulk of St. Thomas's is seemingly shuttered and tomb dark as Canon Stephen pushes open an ancient door and feels for a light switch, an old round knob. Elderly wiring hums ominously and harshly exposes a crowd of blinking, squinting people in a circle around a tiny candle. Some still have their eyes tight shut as if in a trance. Others, notably a man in his 60s, are staring fixedly at another member of the group diagonally across the circle. It's not the small, wiry figure of the Reverend Harry Mount. Not for the first time, the canon wonders at the priest's indifference to cold, for once again, beneath his trademark bushman's hat and sharp-toothed necklace, his knotty brown torso is revealed. The trouble is, his is not the only one. Two women. One young, the other beyond the first flush of youth, are topless. The younger has clutched her shirt to her chest. The other, in seeming ecstasy, still has her hands raised in the air with irritable defiance. "Hey guys," drawls the Reverend Harry Mount. "Well, I guess the spell is broken. Great meeting. I really felt the presence of our Mother Earth. Let's call it a day. Mañana." They gather clothes and, muttering, drift away. Several young women break away and glide toward the rectory. Outside the church porch, bats wheel about in the fading midsummer light. Harry, unabashed, is standing, legs akimbo, like a clerical Iggy Pop. Does nothing faze the man, thinks Canon Stephen. As if reading his mind, Harry says, "We articulate our worship through nakedness. We bathe in air. Our bodies are vessels for God." "I noticed Mr. Barnett didn't feel the need to take his fleece off," observed Stephen primly. "It moves us all in different ways." Harry's eyes flicker sideways under his stained leather brim. "Those women," ventures Stephen, "they are all adults." "I know what you're thinking, Steve," the canon winces. "It's not the usual even song for the good old C of E, a few old dears and a creaky organ." "We're a long way from that." He takes out a Rizzler, licks it lasciviously, and is soon lost in a bosky gloom. Pulling down her jumper, a young woman scampers to catch up with him. "Wait, Harry!" "Hey, Ellie," he says absently, running his fingers down her back. Standing, hands limp by his sides, Canon Stephen hears laughter in the dark. There's another anonymous letter. His home group, it says, is nothing more than a harem of young women whose job it is to cater to his needs. They put him to bed, according to this. The canon waves the letter. A bedtime routine which includes spiritual massage.
Ah, yes.
The Archdeacon doesn't look up from his desk.
I've spoken to him about this. The unfortunate woman sending those letters has issues and has developed a fixation on him, he told me. It happens.
It didn't happen to me when I was running a parish.
Why does that not surprise me?
And as an afterthought,
besides, I don't want to rock the boat now. His TV show is broadcast next week.
The path less travelled. Yeah, I've seen the trailer. Pure Messiah complex.
No, we have to wait till after it airs. We're hemorrhaging members as it is. It's not as if we're blessed with a charismatic generation of clergy.
Stephen ignores this meaningful look.
The bish won't thank me. If we clipped the wings of the atheist's favourite vicar, it would make us look like stuffy old
believers. At the vigil, a bank of cloud hangs between Belston Tor and the valley, making the rugged peak appear like a floating island. A steep, heathered slope drops away into cavernous combes, overgrown with stunted blackthorns. The Reverend Harry Mount is standing on a cairn, intoning his poem, Gaia. Explores the boundaries of sexual and eco-theology, according to a breathless review in the TLS. One clenched fist pumps down by his side, punctuating each line with a punch. Next to him, eyes closed, is a man in a loose woven robe. He is known as the Bard, formerly Piers Myers Goff. Though from different traditions the two men share a look, their heads are twin bushes of unruly, peppery curls. Look at us, not the curls. We are old but potent. We are anti-establishment, yet masters. A tear is creeping down Harry's cheek from tightly shut eyes as he reaches the poem's climax. Ellie applauds eagerly. The light behind her hair gives her a wild copper mandala. She was the first of a growing group of worshippers, though who they are worshipping is unclear. Your beauty inspires me. He breathes into her hair as she tucks herself into his side. Bard Piers looks away. He knows for a fact the poem's about another lover. The woman, it is said, broke Harry's heart. A few hundred metres below, tent flaps are being peeled back and people stretch, loose-limbed in the last rays of midsummer. Their frail humanity is at odds with the wildness of the place. For a man who is at one with the gods of forests, mountains, streams and meadows, Piers feels uneasy on the tour. Here, a savage wildness binds beauty with the terror of unseen things. Unusually for a druid, he wonders about public liability insurance. As midsummer solstice approaches, the camp vibrates with anticipatory sound. Bongos, a yowling medieval shawl, public school drawl and Devonian burr. Havelock is trying to get his tractor down Belston Tor through what looks like a refugee convoy. A brightly coloured human bunting is winding up the track to the summit where 100 little fires burn. He honks irritably, but he can't drive on without mowing them all down, though in truth he wouldn't mind. Rex, riding shotgun, barks excitedly at the rainbowed flock. "Here, where are you going?" he shouts above the engine. "There's nothing up there but a lot of rocks." A tasselled young man points to the summit. "It's the vigil, you know, Reverend Harry." "All right," says Havelock, putting the tractor into gear. "That cunt in a cassock." As midnight approaches, the music intensifies, and people gather, summoned by a subconscious call. Ambient beats thunder softly under the mossy ground. Harry is transfigured, eyes ablaze, hands aloft. He stealthily moves among them, whispering, Gaia. Catches a girl's hand here, pats a shoulder there, twirls round, back to back like a dancer, reaches his hands behind him and blindly grasps whosever hands he finds. Softly at first the crowd join. Gaia, Gaia. Each Gaia is echoed by a sea of upthrust hands and stomping feet bouncing upwards towards the fire at the summit. Eyes closed, Harry's hand pumps down by his side with each syllable. Ellie gazes with fierce devotion as Harry takes her hand, and then he drops it, and another woman has interspersed herself between them and another. Gaia, Gaia. A wild descant joins the polyphony as it becomes a wall of sound, ugly, beautiful, chaotic. The interrupting woman has her mouth on Harry's. He has both her hands clasped above his head, and their bodies are pressed together. They look like stone dancers on Indian temples, or lovers. Afterwards, no one can quite remember how or when it started. On a silent command, the tour becomes a writhing mass of bodies. Strangers, lovers, those who can't interleave themselves into a couple are clasping the backs of others, moaning softly like doulas at a birth. Gaia, Gaia. The words have become a throbbing babble that at once make no sense and make perfect sense. Louder, higher, people are laughing and crying, transported from a damp Devon hillside to the peak of paradise or the depths of Hades. Harry is on the shoulders of two people, shirtless and sweating. From his vantage point by the rocks, Piers sees them as an Ouroboros, the Celtic tail-devouring serpents which twine around crosses and fonts, the divine and earthly opposing yet in ghastly unison. He feels a throb of fear, and as he again wanders about public liability insurance, all at once he stiffens and every hair on his body stands on end. He turns around very slowly. Just behind a cairn of lichened rocks, he sees a woman crouching in a mess of soil, as if freshly wrenched from the loam. She's bulky, on powerful haunches, drenched but not shivering, so earthy that he can't see if she's wearing clothes or not. Piers shudders. Poor wretch, does she live up here? Are you lost? I live here. Her yellow eyes are most peculiar. Their pupils are vertical slits that gaze past him. She seems to flicker, and suddenly his vision and his nostrils fill with an unholy stench of blood and earth and sweetish sweat. So close, he can see her coarse hair beaded with dew. The bard feels fear singing through his skull. When he looks down, his hands are trembling. On the hill? We must have disturbed you. You called me. I did? He did. The slits expand to fill her irises as she fixes on the figure on top of the cairn by the fire. Harry, exultant, priapic, and drunk on adulation. Piers is not quite sure what he's seeing. The woman seems to scuttle in punctuated bursts of inhuman speed. He watches her pause and crouch to drink from a muddy runnel of water. She looks around and flees, wraith-like, from his gaze. Piers hasn't taken a breath, but feels a flash of numbing fear. He's dimly aware that the babble has quieted as the woman carves a low path through the crowd. Later people will remark on the musky spoor, even before it happened. Harry sees the female figure run towards him, seemingly in supplication. He reaches out a hand in magisterial blessing. She squats back on her haunches. You beauty, he breathes. In an instant, his benevolence is changed into wild terror as she reaches out a sinewy hand and snaps his wrist like a dead twig. The Gaia he was about to intone dies on his lips as he regards his hand hanging limply at a right angle to the rest of his arm. "Oh, fuck!" he screams. A few minutes ago, this might have been an instruction. The tone of the vigil has taken a new direction. Worshippers stumble away in confusion and fear. Her head cocked to one side, the wild woman and Harry scrutinise each other in a moment of unhinged brinksmanship. A flicker, and her teeth are at his breast. Harry's bewildered eyes fill with the horror of oncoming death, and in his ears rings the echo of a chant. The Western Morning News later reported that the screams could be heard in Exeter.